Rapids. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is the HHH Racing Podcast, episode 269. It is Royal Ascot. We are so excited to bring you coverage of Royal Ascot live on the HHH Racing Podcast, and the first race starts in 12 minutes. So we're going to be getting right into the tipping, the handicapping, the punting of these races. All promotional concepts here on the show, and anything else we'll be talking about, we're going to hold off until after the first race so we can get into our commentary of the first race of the Royal Ascot meet. The one thing I would ask everyone to do very quickly, though, is please make sure you subscribe. Please hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Hit the notification bell so that you know when new content will arise in the show. And smash that like button. That will send people to our show. Let's bring on right now our good friend and expert punter from the UK. Here he is once again, Mr. Davy Lane. Davy, how you doing today?
I'm good, Howard. I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll. I've got some notes prepared. At 1 minute, I will be putting a bet on with my phone because one of my website browsers has crashed. So
no worries.
Excuse me about a minute before the race, folks, when I'm doing that. Okay.
No worries. Let's bring on our co-host also from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco. Pete, it's Royal Ascot. It's never a bad time to bet horses, even at 9:15 in the morning, your time.
It's better than doing anything else at 9:15 in the morning. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. Say hi to Davy. Davy, Pete
Hey,
Visco
Davy.
here.
How's it going?
See you again.
Good to see you
Davy.
as always.
Guys,
All
let's get right to it, guys. The first race of the entire meet is it's the Queen Anne. This is also win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile here in the United States. So whoever wins this race will get automatic qualifying to the Breeders' Cup Mile in November at Santa Anita. I have picks for all three of us on the screen. We're just going to jump right in. I also have past performances here from the United States. I realize we have viewers from all over the world, so you're going to hear jargon or different words of vocabulary that people use in Europe as well as the United States. Will mix it up. Let's get right to it, guys. The big story, and you see on the bottom of the screen right now, are our picks. The big story, Davey, in this race as a moment is Modern Games is what at least you and I think is an incredibly low and probably absurd 3-5 right now in the Whirlpool. Davey, your opinions of the Queen Anne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I think it's a 6-horse race, and I think Chindit's the winner for me. It was, a horse that was, well. Let me go back a bit. Let me think about the horses that can make it up. Sorry, I'm just getting my notes mixed up. The market has it between Modern Games and Inspiral, and that makes sense. There's eight of the last 13 winners of the race have been favorites. Okay, so Inspiral has not raced since October. In theory, it's a red flag, but she didn't race since October when she returned to absolutely bomb the race last year and beat Spenderella by 4 lengths. Okay, so she's the Italian of the British racing scene. And Cheveley Park, the owners like to focus on Royal Ascot. I mean, who doesn't? But not everybody, So she's going to be very, very hard to beat. Modern Games will serve it up, but a closer look at his form, you've got to pause a little bit. When he's won these races in the States, it may be a bit of a flat track bully. You have Tis the Bomb, Ivars, Shirl Spate, beating these horses. Good horses, but is he really, really the real top draw? I don't know. He was a weak 3-1 favorite in the lock-ins last time, the Group 1 race that he won.
I have that replay queued up, by the way, Davey, if we have time to show it.
Do you want to watch? Put that on.
Would you like to show it? All right, I'm going to go ahead and let's put us all on screen here as I queue it up here. We're going to watch the lock-in stakes, and you can tell, Davey, everyone, which horse is which as I pull it up here. Let me go ahead and do that. And this is the stretch run. So let's just name who the horse is. This is Mutasabak right here.
Yeah,
is
correct.
That correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Modern Games is right here in the blue Godolphin. I believe right here. This is Light Infantry. back here. I'll just let it roll through, and you can talk about it, Davy.
Okay. Well, in the center, and he probably got criticized for going too early, is the Richard Hannon horse, Chindit.
Right here.
Yeah, the big beast. Now, if you think about Chindit, Chindit was a winner at 2, and he was big things were expected, and he ran into the buzzsaw that was Baid. And the horses missed out and last year in terms of big wins, but he's come back a stronger horse, and they have targets. Now, basically, he was winning this race here, went a marginal too early, but Modern Games came up. Modern Games got a bit of a tail into the race. Now, Chindit, the horse in the center there, tried to bite William Buick as he went by. So the horse was playing fun, but the horse regathered for a little bit and kept going. I like that the horse was playing games in its head, and it still had enough to regenerate itself to come back at Modern Games. So I think Chindit's the winner today. There's been money for it. As you may know, Howard, I've been calling it Chindit for a long time in this, and
Yes.
I've bet it every time. So Chindit's the winner for me. I like that they have plans beyond Royal Ascot. They're taking the horse to Australia to win big pools. The horse looks ripped. He looks ready to go. He's a big man now.
And you have Inspiral in second, who absolutely freaked in the Coronation last year. We're not going to show as many replays for this race because we have a limited amount of time before this first race. And then you are going with another very interesting horse, Light Infantry, the 5 in third, who right now is a very big price. And we just saw he's 23-1 that I see right now. You're getting somewhere around 24s. He did not run great in the race we saw, but there's a little bit of an uphill finish, and he's a closer. We'll talk about the track and the possible ground they're running on after this race, but talk a little about Light Infantry.
He was the next second to Inspiral in the Prix Jacques de Marwar at Deauville, which is basically the continental Europe's premier 1 mile race. So he's done that. He's been there. He's danced all the dances. He's been placed 3 times in Group 1 races. This is not a wide outsider. This is a serious horse. They took him down. He's got Australian partial connections. They took him out to Australia for the Golden Eagle race, which is a race in Randwick, which is run counter to one of the big Melbourne races to try and make competition with them. It's a 7.5 furlong race. He got stuck on the rail, and Jamie Spencer, who went down for the ride, had to bob and weave to get through, and he finished 6th, a closing 6th. So he's Group 1 on every level. He's not a 25-1 outsider. So he could come up and surprise and win. I have him in the place. I've played a trifecta with him, with Chindit, with Inspiral, boxing them all together.
Okay. Pete, you're going to go chalk with Modern Games here, and you also have Native Trail, who was a complete freak last year and hasn't quite reproduced it. I know Native Trail, and Dave, you can confirm this real quick before Pete talks, had a little bit of a breathing problem, apparently had some surgery, and supposedly is better, but he's not come back to form. But Pete, you're going to go 7-9-3 with Cash. I think it's a very interesting bomb underneath. Pete, real quick about this race for you.
Yeah, I mean, Modern Games is just sort of to me, it was sort of, I liked 4 horses sort of on the top line. It was Modern Games, Inspiral, like nothing too complicated. And then I do like Cash. Cash was chasing Davy's horse Chindit a couple back. And then the last one I thought actually ran a winning race, but I thought the extra 1/4 mile sort of got to him, he ran the winning race, got the lead, and then folded a little late. So I like the cut back there at a nice price. I wound up just playing sort of a trifecta with the basically Native. I have Modern Games, Inspiral, and I think Native in second. And then I put 5 horses on top, just trying to go for a price there. Go ahead, Davy.
Yeah, just to say that I'm watching the horses walk down. Modern Games is walking down, and he has a red hood on. Now, they put the red hood on that just to keep the horse calm, but that means they take the hood off before he races. So just a little bit of information there. I
don't recall him normally doing that in the States, Pete.
I don't think so. No, I don't remember that.
What does that mean to you, Davey, if anything at all?
Well, I'm looking at Inspiral, who's also got a red hood on. So right now. So I'm watching that. Okay. The 2 favorites have red hoods on, so they're trying to keep a lid on them both, for sure.
Interesting.
By
Let
the
me go
way,
ahead and show.
Howard, I was just saying,
One
Native
more
Trail.
thing on Cash,
go
the
ahead.
jockey booking. I was thinking of Cash too. It's a very good jockey booking with Tom Marquand.
Yeah, I like that.
Go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, Native Trail. The one thing in that last one, came back after a pretty lengthy layoff, and it was just that was a weird race. The 5-horse. It was only a 5-horse race. Musta Beak not Musta Beak. Musta Sabi sort of got away, and then I think there was no catching him at that point. So I think it was a fine race just to sort of get the legs back under Native Trail. So I'm hoping for an improved effort at what looks to be a pretty good price right now here. I mean, you talk 10-1 is what we're seeing here on a horse that was great last year. So
let me go ahead and show my picks, guys, for people that are interested. On the bottom of the screen, this is how I'm playing this race, Davy and Pete. I'm doing a little win and place on Chindit. I like Chindit also. People need to pay attention now, especially if you're from the States. These saddlecloth numbers do not, I repeat, do not in general reflect the gate or the stall they're leaving from. Chindit is the 4 leaving from the outside gate, which is the stand side, which is the horses that are closest to the camera. When we're talking stand side, we're talking about the horses that are closest to the camera. If we talk about near side, we're talking about the horses that are furthest away from the camera or closest to what we say is the infield here in the United States. But I'm playing trifectas. You can see them on the screen. I've win in place on Chindit. I'm going 4 with 5, 7, 12. Everyone can see it on the screen with 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. Then I'm going 5, 7, 12 with 4, with 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. And then 5, 7, 12 with 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 with 4. So I'm putting Chindit in all spots in my try. They're going to be starting very soon, guys. We're going to go ahead. We cannot show it live due to copyright. So we're going to take everyone off screen. We wish everyone good luck in the Queen Anne. Davy and Pete, you'll hear a 30-second.
There's market updates. You've got 7-4 modern games, 11-4 in Spiral. Are you hearing me, Howard?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. We're going to take you guys off screen again. Davy and Pete, you're going to hear a 30-second. You'll see the 30-second countdown before we come on in between these breaks. So everyone, good luck. It's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup. It's the first race of the meet. It is the Queen Anne Stakes. Good luck to everyone. Davy and Pete, go ahead and mute as well as I take you guys off screen. Thank you. set to start the Royal Ascot meet. Triple Time wins the Queen Anne. I see 45-1, one of the longest, actually, as I'm looking, about the third longest choice on the board. Actually, I see 34-1 now. I see 34-1 here in the Whirlpool, I believe. Neil Callan, the jockey. Davy, this is a jockey you and I have talked about a little bit off air. We almost actually got him on for the show earlier this week. Inspiral had every chance on the inside and looked like she was going to win, but Triple Time fights back. Light Infantry, a very good third. Modern Games, extremely disappointing.
Well, I have one thing to say, and maybe it's a timing issue. I just sent you a note because a screenshot of my notes. I think if we had an extra 15 minutes prior to this race with a half an hour, I would have had a chance to talk about this horse as I was intending to, and we got a little carried away. I ultimately wasn't going to pick him, but I was basically, as I say, it's relatively lightly raced and room for improvement and should be considered. I had it down there, and I wanted to get that into the narrative. This
is not Davy, second guessing or trying to make himself look good. I can confirm that Davy did talk to me about this horse a little bit, maybe more underneath, maybe second, third, etc. Davy, let's just show the past performances here of Triple Time. This was Triple Time's. This is a 4-year-old colt by Frankel out of a Mark of Esteem mare trained by the Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum. The form was improving last year as a 3-year-old, but to win this race is really a big surprise, I think, for most people.
I mean, it is a surprise, but it was touted. It was one of those wise guy horses, and that was a category I was going to discuss. There was a few of them, and it was out there. And when people see the yellow silks with the black dots, I mean, that's just not Freddie's syndicate there. I mean, that's Sheikh Obeid Maktoum. I mean, that's the cousin of the Sheikh Mohammed, the Godolphin guys. So this is like big time guys. A lot of people know that.
We have not had time to show. Let's show some comments. We have a lot of people watching. And again, if you're watching, whether it's in the States, over in Europe, South America, wherever you are worldwide, welcome to the HHH Racing Podcast. Somebody take this banner down, so we'll say that. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz, here along with expert UK punter Davy Lane.
Well,
and another.
I'm no expert. I just want a big compliment.
I'll say you're an expert. You can not say it. That's fine. And Pete Visco, another excellent handicapper here from the States. Let's get some comments from a lot of people. A lot of people watching here. We've got Raymond Cromley is cheering for a Frankel colt to win. Raymond, thanks for joining the show. Jared Bush, Triple Time baby balloons. Jared, if you had Triple Time, or if anyone had Triple Time out there, congratulations. Michael Osen, 35-1, 34-1. He's got Triple Time. Apparently some people had Triple Time out there. Davey, we got Jimmy Johnson. Dang it, didn't box my swinger. Got a nice place, though, on Triple Time. Tom Espinoza is here from San Francisco. So, Tom, welcome to the show. We got a lot of people here watching. Please make sure you put those comments in the chat. Your overall thoughts, Pete? I didn't see where Modern Games finished. Was it 5th or 6th, I believe? I didn't see too much trouble. I was watching Chindit on the outside, who made a little bit of a middle move, Davey, and just sort of flattened out. But Pete, your thoughts on the race in general?
Yeah, I mean, it was I thought all the horses that you expected to make a run had their chance. Modern Games looked to be open in the clear. Inspiral had, like you said, actually this was like the Triple Time was like a Bob Baffert horse with the re-rally. Looks like Inspiral went by, and then you would think at that point the race is over, but Triple Time re-rallied. I was watching Cash. Cash had a little bit of early trouble, but was too far back and probably just not good enough. Chindit, I didn't seem to do too much, but I wasn't really focused. I don't know if you had any insight on what he was doing. It didn't look like much was going on. Poorly
Davey,
for him.
he was uncovered. I thought Chindit might be closer. They took him back a little bit. The fact that he was a bit uncovered for a big part of the race. And for those who don't know what I mean by say uncovered, was that these horses in general like to draft in behind each other, sort of like a race. And Chindit was not able to draft. Do you think that was any bit of a factor at all, Davey? Or do you think it wasn't enough on the day?
I think it was they were keen. They wanted to make sure they didn't do what they did last time, so they tried to put him in, but he couldn't get cover, and that's just what happens on a big wide track like that. But to our credit, I mean, you're looking at trifectas, and we were calling light infantry, and we were calling in spiral.
Yeah,
and just one of them just came up and nudged it. But in that context of bringing up Obeid, I think just looking forward to the races ahead now, as we've got plenty of time to do that. Yeah. We need to sort of look at these ownership silks and think about who else could pop out of the woodwork in the races ahead, and be familiar with that and get people like alert to who's coming.
Davey, before we get into the sales, let's just back up a little bit and talk about a few things, especially for the American viewers who might not be familiar or might not recall some things about Royal Ascot in general. The first thing I want to do here is show everyone the track and what it looks like. And I can't make it any bigger than that, but if you can see where my arrow is, they started this race on the straight. You see at the end at the bottom right here, and they're going to be running a 5 furlong race and a 6 furlong race today as well. And they're going to be starting on the straightaway. Notice, everyone, I don't know if you can read that at home, but the last furlong, last 200 meters, Davey, is uphill. So it's what they call a stiff, finish for these horses. So when they go, that was a mile. It was really a little, it plays a little bit more than a mile because of this uphill finish. Now, they do have something called the round course, which is obviously you can see it here. And there'll be some races that are going to be going over this round course where they're going to start on the straight. They'll go all the way around into Swinley Bottom and come around again, a right-hand turn. The last race we're covering today, which is the St. James Palace, is actually going to start up here at the top right where you see my cursor here. And there's a slow rise into that relatively sharp, although it's not as sharp as it used to. They reconstructed the track a few years ago. This right-hand turn and finish. So the fourth race today will start here at the top of the screen and will be this slight bend or turn. Davey, any thoughts on so that's one thing. Now I'm going to leave this on the screen. I'm going to bring this all back on. Davey, there's an unexpected amount of a little bit of rain this morning. About in American parlance, about 0.4 of an inch, about 9-10 millimeters of rain, which I believe was unexpected. It's been very warm. It's been very dry there at Ascot, and the track does drain quickly. Any thoughts on how the moisture this morning will affect the races today specifically?
I don't think it'll affect them at all. I think early this morning people were concerned because when they were there at the track this morning, like Wesley Ward was there at 7 a.m., it was raining heavily and he thought it was going to be worse than it was. But it's dried out quickly. It's hot. It's humid. The sun isn't out, but it's very, very muggy and hot. So the track is drying and it won't impact anything.
And I didn't see a lot of clumps of grass or sod being kicked up in that race. Now, that was the first race, but I would say in American parlance, I would say the track is probably firm, good to firm. Yeah. For over there, you would say as tracks go in the UK, it's pretty darn firm, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's good racing ground. Okay.
The way in Spiral ran on the inside, Davey, and this is just me spitballing right now.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the far side rail or the inner part of the track might not be quite as good? Because I felt like she was going on with it, and then she just didn't quite sustain the run. Does that have anything to do with it, in your opinion, or is it way too early to say right now?
It's way too early to say, but it could very well do. And you would therefore look to be looking at horses that are going to be drawn, I would say, high in the next race. So because it's a charge of the light brigade situation, and they're going to be across the field. So, we'll see. But that's a good clue, Howard. I would say that. Yeah, then, you know, with the camber, it may have just been slightly, but I think we're on margins. I think maybe the best horse just won there, and he was just,
Okay.
as I was saying, he was lightly raced and ready, you know, and with an unheralded jockey, even though he's a journeyman type jockey, he's a great jockey. You know, he's a good jockey, and you ignore him at your peril.
Apparently, my volume's a little bit low. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Hopefully, that's better. I don't know if you guys hear a difference or not, but I turned up my volume just a little bit. I'll speak a little bit louder. Thank you, Sylvain, for mentioning that. Pete, listen, when you picked Modern Games, I mean, he was clearly the horse to beat, according to many. I think what we need to make sure we do, and this is not a knock on you. I mean, I liked Modern Games in this race also, but these are world-class races. These are the toughest races these horses are going to be in. And ASCOT is this straightaway is obviously something that is very particular. Now, Modern Games has done it before. Do you just think he didn't fire? I mean, where do they go going forward? Do you think they bring him back to the States? How big of a setback do you think this might be for Modern Games, Pete?
Oh, I mean, I don't think of it as a setback. I mean, I think there was questions about him on this course. There was questions about him going up the hill. So I think at the odds that he turned out to be, I thought that was way too low for a horse like this to get in a field like this. I mean, I think he comes here, he's still as good as can be going a mile. But also, you know, in the race here, when he lost to Chez Pierre, he didn't look his best either. So it could just be that he's not at his best, and maybe that last race was more of the outlier, and the other two are more where his form is. I mean, he's been great. So maybe he comes back over here and he's going to get bet down most likely on name recognition. And maybe that's how you could catch a price by beating him.
Our wonderful viewer, Trish Smith, is here giving you some props. Davy, hello. Trish, thanks for joining the show. High risk is suggesting to keep Modern Game in the States. I don't know about that. I agree with Pete. I mean, he could certainly beat the top class horses in the UK, maybe today, or in Europe in general. Maybe today was not his day. Irad is off horses, guys. He had food poisoning, and Irad Ortiz is not riding today. Johnny Velasquez is taking over, Davy, in case you didn't hear that news. Nothing wrong with Johnny V, but that is some big news out of racing today. Any other thoughts before we move on to the second race, Davy? And you also want to make some points about a recent sale that happened that you've touched on that might affect some opinions of these horses.
No more. Let's move on. But I do want to sort of look at instead of necessarily going by race and the form. Just for me, there are things going on. There, identifying who the owners are and being aware of them. That's one thing. Knowing who's been sold and purchased. That's another thing. And looking at jockeys. And I've identified 5 jockeys I was going to go over and just sort of talk about.
Go ahead, please do.
During the race. So just going off on the next race, just looking at what we've got a horse called a Sadna. That's owned by Sheikh Abdullah Al Sabah. That's a part of the Kuwaiti royal family. That's got light white silks with a little bit of green trim. Important to note. There's another horse favored in the market called Bonanero Fuerte. That's owned by Kir Jarapkin, a soccer football agent. He's a Persian from a Persian family of car dealers, big money guy, etc. He's got a couple in the race, Cuban Thunder and Packard. You've got Army Ethos, and you've got Watch My Tracer with a Bahraini ownership, Fauzi Nas. He's a trainer in Bahrain. So these are random silks that you might not know who they are because it's under certain names, but it's good to be familiar with them. You have to also think about who's being purchased. And as we look at this race, there has been a purchase in this race, and that's called Give Me the Beat Boys, and that was sold for over £1 million last night. Now that horse was an £11,000 horse, within this last year, and it's been sold at a massive markup by the Irish owners. So you've got to say to yourself, if someone's bought a horse for $1 million, maybe they know something we don't, and we've got to be thinking about it. I certainly included it in my bets subsequently, even though it was on the bubble of my bets because of that. And
so that would upgrade Give Me the Beat Boys for you a bit, Davy, correct?
It would, although I think it's on the side of the field and the draw where there's less pace. It's going to be Johnny V taking the pace along now, I would assume, on Fandom, but we'll see. And then there are jockeys. I just want to just drop some names first of all, and we don't have to. We can go to them later on. But James McDonald, the New Zealand rider who rides in Australia, he's got about 14 or 15 rides. People need to know who he's riding right throughout the course of the meeting. Kevin Stott is the retained rider for Ammo Racing. This is the Persian guy with the Kia Jarapkin. He's got a bunch of races. He's got about 15 mounts as well. He's a Danish horse rider. He's very good. So I've got to watch for him. And a couple of others. Daniel Muscott. He's riding a lot of the horses that have the name Legend in the name. Legends are owned by a Hong Kong owner called Bo Ho. So he's got chances and stuff. He's a good rider. Billy Loughnane is a young teenage prosody type rider. He's got to be watched as well. And finally, Tom Marcon that we've just talked about earlier. Those were the five. And Neil Callan, of course, the journeyman guy that you can ignore at your peril, and we all did. So I just want people to think of those names and look up who these particular jockeys are riding and pay attention to it, because these guys are good. So if we move on to the race now, then we have to look at the Coventry. And,
hey Davey, I want to show everyone your ABC. Can I show everyone the ABC, your ABC grid? Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah.
So real quick, this is Davey's ABC grid. Now, for those of you not familiar with ABC, I'll explain. If you cannot be with us for the entire show here, we're only watching the first 4 races today, but there are 7 races total at ASCOT today. What you're seeing right now on the screen is, and I can't make it bigger, so I apologize for that. This is Davy's ABC grid. Now, you might want to take a picture or a screenshot if you agree or like what Davy Lane has to say. I don't know why you wouldn't. But very quickly, this left side, if you can see my arrow, the left column is his A's or his top choices. The middle column are his B's or his secondary choices. And the column on the right are his C's or his, I wouldn't say third choices, but the horses that are least likely to win. And Davey, I have to give you credit. Modern Games, who was a big favorite, you had actually in your C column. So you were completely against Modern Games. As you can see, you had in Spiral as an A. She ran a blinder. She ran very well. And Light Infantry at a big price ran third. So I'm going to take this off the screen here in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. But again, you might want to take a picture or a screenshot. Again, you can see as the races go on. This is just for today. Left column, top choices. Middle column, secondary choices. Column on the right, Davy Lane's least likely but possible winners today. Davy, let's go ahead and get into the next race as I go ahead and bring us on the screen. This is the Coventry. This is a 2-year-old race, restricted for 2-year-olds. They're going 6. Now, Davy, or 1,200 meters. There are some 5 furlong 2-year-old races this week. So the fact that they're going 6, you would think these are horses that prefer a little more distance than maybe some others. Let's go ahead and bring up, you see on the bottom of the screen, David and I are both going with the very talented number 3, Asadna, that we mentioned. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the odds right now on Asadna, 7-2. Wow, I'll take 4.5 all day, Davey, on this horse. And I have a lot of replays to show. So we will show those replays as well. Davey, let's talk about our top choice, Asadna, first as I bring up the PPs. What's the post position for Asadna, or the gate from the outside, right? I believe somewhere.
Yeah, he's 17. So
okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring that on the screen here, or at least try to. Having PPs are being a little bit okay. Having a little trouble with the PPs, but go ahead, Davey. Talk about Asadna.
Yeah, Asadna 17. Now, this was a breezer horse purchased, and again, when I mentioned the owners before, this is an owner for George Bowie, the trainer, young hot trainer, and the Kuwaiti chap, the Sheikh Al Sabah, is he's buying horses for this guy. So this is something happening. You've got to look at horse racing and these owners. You can. It's a fickle game. There's people who over the decades were big, and then guys go bankrupt, this, that, and the rest. There's Maharajas and various sheikhs and various Armenian oil magnates, and 20 years later they're gone from the game. So you've got to look where the fresh money is, and the fresh money is like the Gulf guys and the Hong Kong guys. And the old school money, European money. That's gone. So right now we got a guy trying to get his nose into the game here, and that's the Kuwaiti guy. And back in the day, in the Middle East, the Cairo, the Baghdad, the Beirut, these are the big tracks. Now it's in the Gulf, and it's Dubai, and Qatar and Bahrain are trying to chip in. There's no real big racing in Kuwait in terms of, there's racing, but there's not like that. So this guy is buying horses. He's put a lot of them with George Bowie. They found a horse at a breeze-up sale. The horse went to a provincial English track called Ripon. No one was betting the horse. And a lot of people say, well, that's why it wasn't any good, and they were just surprised by it. But William Buick made the trip from the south of England up to Yorkshire to ride the race. This is like someone going to Thistledown on a Thursday afternoon to ride a horse.
Sure.
Something up, right?
Hey, don't knock Thistledown. We're covering Thistledown. The Ohio Derby is coming up, Davy. The Ohio Derby is this Saturday.
Okay. Well, yeah. So this is the thing. And he ran an absolutely enormous pace figure, a time form figure of 109 with great potential. So this is a horse you have to take seriously. On the clock, he's great. Now, there was a debate in the English Twitter sphere about whether the horse is good enough. The horse got entered for another race prior to declarations, and there was fears there was something wrong with the horse. None of that's panned out. I think the owners were just making an entry for a race later in the week just in case something happened. That's all. They're being covering belt and braces. So,
in case people are wondering what I'm doing, this is why it's important to come prepared. My batteries ran out on my mouse, and I was having issues, so I was switching batteries. We're live, folks. Switching batteries on my mouse, which is why you don't see the PPs. I'm going to try to get those up. And I have replays ideally we can show, which I'm going to be working on here.
Now,
anyway,
yeah,
Asana was really impressive. Why do you think they went to the provincial track in Ripon? A little unusual, right?
I think Ripon is a track with it's got it's got these ripples on the track. It's very, very difficult to run on. And I think they thought, well, let's give it the most difficult possible track to go on and see if it can really deal with stuff. Because if it can, there's a dip at Newmarket for the 2,000 guineas the following year, and a lot of horses don't manage that. So I think they think this horse is the real deal, and they were giving it a baptism. And so I'm big on this horse to win, and I played all my anti-post bets on this horse. So
Pete, as I'm why don't you talk about your second choice, Davy, as I try to bring up the replays of that horse and some others as well.
Well, the second horse I'm going for is Bucanero Fuerte, which is the Amo Racing horse. Now he's drawn on 14. Now you've got to look at what the winning draws of the races for this race over the last 25 years. 75% of the thereabouts have either come from the high or low draws. You very rarely get a horse winning from the middle. So as good as you've got horses that are in the middle, it's going to be difficult for them. And as far as I can see, in addition to me liking Asadna, he's drawn high, and he's got horses who have pace around them, in particular the Wesley Ward horse, who I would assume would have the pace and who I assume would go. Is he more likely to go with Irad Ortiz than Johnny V? Yes. Now there's no Irad. So you got to say to yourself, there's two things going on. This morning there was was fandom going to be withdrawn because Wesley Ward thought it was going to be too soft? Didn't pan out. That's great. Now Johnny V is on it. Johnny V is not known as a guy who goes forward very, very much. Is that correct?
Not as much. This, by the way, is the run for Asadna. We'll just watch the end. I mean, when a horse wins by this much, there's not much to say. It was very impressive. He's in the green here, Davy.
Yeah, green hat, white silks.
This is Asadna right here. Yeah. This stride, no reason to believe 6 will be a problem. I'm not sure how good the field was, Davy, but this is super impressive.
Super impressive. And he got better as the race went on. So the distance is fine, is perfectly good for him. This is what he wants.
Yeah, striding out really well. Pete, this looks like this could be a star. I mean, you never know, but wow, that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. That's what you're looking for in a debut race. So I mean, you don't know. Like, I mean, it wasn't like it was a high class race. It wasn't. You look at the horses behind. Not a ton necessarily came out. I don't think when I remember looking, but again, wasn't even the favorite, which is even funnier. Rolls by 12, looks that dominant, and was 4-1 in that race. So, and picks, has Buick again. So there's all systems go, seems like, for that horse, but it's a tough field. So, I mean, I don't think it's a layover by any stretch.
No, no doubt about it. And having some tech issues here on the side, but I'm trying to show this 5-horse, Davy. Go ahead, keep talking about this 5, and I'll get the replay up here as soon as I can.
Well, this is
of
an ammo
his
horse.
debut effort.
Yeah, this is the horse I like. The second is an ammo racing horse, and it's the choice of Kevin Stott, the jockey I was mentioning earlier. He could have chosen 3 horses. He's chosen this. I've got to say that he's the better of the horses, and he's drawn closer to what I would assume to be the pace, and that's why I like him. So all this means that I'm taking on the favorite, River Tiber. That's what this means. And I'm also taking on the big purchase, the Give Me the Beat Boys and Frankie Dettori. So that's a tough thing to do. They're drawn in 6 and 7, and they're away from what I think is the pace. And the horses to the inside of them, I think, are garbage trucks, and they don't have any chance. So I think they'll be a bit isolated and a bit, away from the main part of the race. So,
well, let's talk about that, Davey, because a lot of the American viewers might not be familiar with what you're trying to say. The horses on the far side are slower in general, not as good, and ideally they might split off in this race. And you want to follow horses, obviously the faster ones. Is there any possible chance any of these horses that have a low draw can actually come all the way over to the high draw horses? But that would take up more energy then, correct, if they do that?
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't happen. It's too wide. The track's too wide. So what you have is the race will either break into 2, but it could break into 3. There could be 3 races within 1. Depends. Who knows how it'll go. But you'll be looking across the track and you could see 3 races within 1. And that means sometimes, your horse is racing. I mean, the horse is racing who he sees. He's racing against a pack of 6 or 7 or 8 horses, and he thinks he's winning and he's happy. But he doesn't see the 3 other characters, way across the track. So,
sure.
This is the issue with that. So this is why I'm playing. I'm playing on the high. I mean, there are people who would disagree. There are some people who would be playing the lower numbers, and good luck to them. But I think Asadna is the best horse. I've played him anti-post for that reason, and of course, a bomb could come up from nowhere too. So you've got to be aware of those. So I put them on the screen. There's a few bombs that could pop up easily.
Okay, now Davey, this is the number 5. This is the horse we did mentioning. This was the very first race of the flat season. This is all the way back in March, Davey. So the horse in purple here is the 5 today, the one we're talking about. The fact that this horse won so early in the season leads me to believe, Davey, that first of all, he's precocious, number 1, and number 2, that he's got a lot of upside. He wins this for fun, and I love the acceleration and the stride. He's got a very big stride. I don't think distance is a problem at all for this horse right here.
No, nor do I. And this was soft to heavy going this race.
Yep.
And he
once he pushes the button, he explodes here, Davey.
He goes, and I don't think he's going to be worried by the ground being good to firm. I think he'll be better. So I think this is a big threat to beat the favorite. That should be my biggest fear. I mean, the bet to me would be the exacta, the 2 of them. But a bomb could come from anywhere. This is the thing. So I like this horse and Asadna over Aidan O'Brien and Frankie Dettori, and that's a difficult thing to do because Aidan O'Brien has won this race on 9 occasions. Think about it, 9 occasions, and we all know what Frankie Dettori's done. So I'm taking on the percentages.
Pete, we're all going 5-3. We're all a little bit against this River Tiber. Pete, I'm going to let you talk here a little bit. I don't know your general thoughts. I mean, there's a lot of guessing, but one negative, at least for me, Pete, is the fact this horse has only beaten 12 horses, actually beaten 10 horses, because, of course, he was in the race as well. But he's been in small fields. I mean, obviously, he's extremely talented and can win, but we're trying to beat this Aidan O'Brien horse.
Yeah, I mean, you have to try and beat somebody who's good. I mean, the horse hasn't done anything wrong, has run. The first race was on heavy ground and still won by 10. If you care about, time form is familiar to us in the States, the time form ratings for the 2 races. So the good thing is the horse has run twice, ran an 84 and an 88 from a time form standpoint. which means that he carried the same form in both of those races. The connections are awesome. The horses just looked really good. I don't know. There's not a ton of knocks. I mean, Davy seems to be against him, so I wonder if he has some specific knocks, but he looks to be tactical. He has a nice late kick, so he should be probably sitting off where there's a couple speed horses here. He's also carrying 5 pounds less, 4 and 5 pounds less than he has in his first 2 races. I'm not a weight guy, but that's still something in a field like this. So, I mean, I don't think there's too many knocks on this horse. It's just the point of whether he's good enough.
Yeah, Pete, they're entering the gate. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
good
luck to everyone in the Coventry. We really like Asana and also go ahead, Davey, real quick.
British market right now: River Tiber 11-8, Asadna 7-2. Give me the Beat Boy 7-1. Chief Mankato 11-1. That's the James McDonald horse. Wesley Ward horse 11-1. And there you go. There's been a drift on the horse I like, Buonacanero Fuerte. He's out to 16-1.
He's actually 30 here, Davey. That horse.
Yeah. So, interesting. So people think he doesn't take to the ground. We'll see.
All right. Good luck to everyone in the Coventry. We'll be back in just a few minutes, everyone.
You're on mute, Howard.
From today, under its tremendous drive.
Sorry about that, everyone. We are back here on the HHH Racing Podcast, live TV. You gotta love it. No roughie wins this race.
Yeah.
You've got Chalk, River Taiba, Davy wins, but there are some big bombs in behind, including that number 5 horse who ran very well for third.
Right. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I had it in the place, but I got the track wrong. It was going to be high or low. It looks like the low numbers are the place to be, and maybe have been a reason why this horse was entered for another race a few days along. Something might have happened to a Sadner we don't know about, and they kept it quiet. And,
well, we didn't talk about that off air, David. You want to expound a little bit? We're not trying to hide anything from people. We have a limited amount of time, but just very briefly talk about what you're referring to.
Yeah, Sadner there was a lot of rumors going around that he wasn't going to race today, and when the entries came for, I think, the Thursday or the Friday races, he was entered in the Norfolk, and that surprised people, and they were saying maybe there's a little mishap and they're going to save him for a few days later, or what have you. So the stable has kept quiet. They've said everything's okay, but maybe it's just not good enough. But maybe something was wrong, and it'll come to light. I believed it was going to be the next great thing, and I got that wrong, and I went against O'Brien, who won this 9 times, and of course now it's 10 times. Difficult to do that. But listen, if you're gambling, you've got to be able to take a stand and push that envelope. And I had one of the three. So light infantry in the first race, now this one in the second race. I'm hitting the ball against the crossbar, so to speak, in that respect, but that's okay. It's not like I'm picking horses finishing 15th, 17th and all the rest of it. So this is the game. You have to play it that way. You have to realize you're not going to win every race.
In second, Pete, was Army Ethos. I know some with Holly Doyle, by the way, riding. Yeah. Some people liked Army Ethos just through different podcasts.
I had the horse as an A, and I had the triple sitting there, and I canceled it because I couldn't get the price down to what I wanted. I had the try. I see Michael Austin had the try. That should be nice with those. Yeah, I had the two. So the connections of the two, Army Ethos won this race last year, beating a decent O'Brien favorite last time, and it's Bradsell who's actually running. I don't know how to say it. Bradsell running later. I thought that was a good horse. I mean, I thought just watching the replay, I thought that horse had a shot. The time for him came back a little slow, but I don't think that matters as much, especially with younger horses.
One thing on Bradsell, just people not to jump ahead, but it's the same ownership group as Victorious and Fauzi Nas, the Bahraini trainer, and that was not entered for the next race. It was supplemented for a 5-figure sum last week. So that's worth knowing. And the owners have spent £11,000 to get the horse in the race last week. So that's the Bradsell.
That's always nice to know. Yeah.
Okay.
So Rodney, again, we have a lot of people. We really appreciate. We have at least 150 people watching on YouTube, and I'm sure we have many, many others watching on Twitter and other platforms. So thank you very much for watching the HHH Racing Podcast here live Tuesday morning, day one of Royal Ascot. 17-5, I believe, is the correct numbers, Rodney, aka Hot Rod. So Hot Rod, thanks for joining the show.
And the 12 was fourth.
I'm sorry?
The 12 was fourth. Give me the beat, boys. So, the guys invested $1 million knew what they were doing at some level,
No question about it. I didn't see any excuses for Etsadna. I'd say Etsadna was sort of asked a little bit earlier that he was sort of niggled on Davy. I didn't really like the way he was going mid-race. I don't know how you felt. Didn't really have any excuses. We didn't talk about Wesley Ward and fandom, and the reason why we didn't is none of us really thought he was a factor in this race. He did go to the lead, Davy, like you thought, but this is just a much bigger ask. He does have an absolute monster running in the Norfolk called American Rascal, who is I believe, is it a half or a full, Pete, to a Lady Aurelia? I think it's a half, but American Rascal later this week could be an absolute monster, Davey, for Wesley Ward. By far his best chance of the week, American Rascal in the Norfolk. I think that's Thursday, Davey, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's Thursday. First race Thursday, the Norfolk.
Okay. Any other
I'm
thoughts
with
on this race day before we move on? I would say, great call with, did you play in each way? And explain to the American viewers what an each way is on the 5.
And each way is when you have to pay for the win and you have to pay for the place at the same time. And what happens is that the UK bookies in competition with each other, because there are dozens of them, they'll increase the place numbers from the traditional 3 for a regular race, and it traditionally has been 4 for a handicap race, more than 16 runners. That's what it is. And in the last 5 or 6 years, one bookie says, well, I'll pay you 5 places or 6 places, So there, if you get a horse that was 16 to 1, 5 places, and you put the money on, you get your stake you're ahead of the game. So no loss for me on that.
Okay. Congratulations to anyone who had River Tiber, and more importantly, had the 2nd or 3rd place horse underneath. Again, these are huge fields, Davy. You have to go price shopping. And like you said, this is gambling. You take chances in this game, whether you're right or wrong. It's your money, folks. You can bet it any way you want. But in general, I think the 3 of us are going to try to bet favorites unless we think they are just over the top good, Pete. Or if it's a bigger field, I think obviously you want to take some chances. There is a race coming up today in the 4th race that's a smaller field that I'm not sure you want to take on the favorites. But does field size matter to you, Pete, even in the races here in the States, as in terms of how strong an opinion you have on the favorite, or is it purely on form alone?
I think it's on form alone, but I think what we see in some of these races with the bigger fields, it is just not, the favorites just don't win in some of these because it's a big field. You get horses that are really good that just get lost in the shuffle just because of the size of the field and the different options that there are. But I mean, you look at a horse like this with 6 to 5 here, and just looked really good on paper. The connections are great. So it makes sense that the horse was the favorite and ran like it. But I think you're okay betting you can catch a 20 to 1 shot a lot easier in a top-notch race, I feel like, in some of the European big days than on the days where when we have big days here, sometimes it's just chalk, chalk, chalk all the way through. And I don't think you have that there. And I think you also don't be afraid to use the favorite because the payouts are going to be bigger. It's like the Derby. The Derby for us is the only 20-horse race we get. And even if you have the favorite in there, you can get a nice payout on your exactas, your triples, something like that, because the field is so spread out. You can get some bombs in there. I assume this trifecta is going to pay pretty well, even with the chalk on top, because you got 2 nice bombs, especially from our side in 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah. Davey, I don't like to look at the betting pools too often and make decisions off of that because there's frankly a lot of bad, uninformed, uneducated money in the pools. But when ASCOT was only 7 to 2 or 4 to 1, I should have, I don't know. I placed a fairly large win bet on him. I don't regret it, but if he was really that good, maybe he would have been lower. Am I being too hard on myself, Davey?
Yeah. Well, he drifted all week. And then once people realized he was running, there was money for him. There was money for him last night and this morning. So that stopped coming around like lunchtime. And then the drift came on. So
sure,
he got the money from people who thought everything was A-OK. So clearly it wasn't.
Let's take care of a few administrative items real quick for those of you watching. Again, if you're new to the HHH Racing Podcast, welcome. We have shows every week. Our flagship show is on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern here in the United States, but we have shows all week long. We have a show tomorrow night. Let's just very quickly talk about a few things. Please listen to us. We are on listening platforms as well, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We have power picks, and Davey, instead of Pete and I talking about the picks, because of course we're hosting and co-hosting, it'd be nice to have someone to laud the praises of the picks that's outside of the show. The power pick information is below the video player. This is a tip sheet that is extremely inexpensive and profitable. And I know, Davey, you have cashed many times on our ABC grids horizontally, on my spot plays that I throw out there. The power picks have proven to be very successful over the years. Yeah,
they're excellent. And I use them to stitch bets together. I mean, we're in different jurisdictions with different rules of betting and so on. And there's, with very few exceptions, there's no liquidity really in the pool markets in UK racing. So you have to find other ways to try and get a big score. You know, because you can't just put you don't have the big enough. I'm not one of these guys who rolls into calls a personal bookie and has like 10 grand on a horse. You know, like or I'm not one of these guys in Chinatown who comes in after a night's takings and drops the 5 grand on the even money favorite. That kind of guy, you know. So we have to work out the way, you know, bet small, make big, you know. And what I try and do, I try and keep my head around, you know, what's going on in as many racing jurisdictions as possible, which brings me to another point. I'll get to it, and stitch a few bets together. So I will often come up with a bet that I have 2 horses on Australia that I watch in the morning, 2 or 3 in the UK, and then I'll have, you know, 2 picks in the States, you know, and I'll tie them into some sort of bet, you know, and that would be my Saturday. And that's a slow burn enjoyment. You know, I'm watching a race at 7 a.m, then I go out for a run or whatever the hell, you know, a riot, and then there's a few more at 2 p.m, and then 8 o'clock at night there's a few more. So you know, that's the way I like to create the fun out of the whole spectacle. And that brings me to another point, which is I see a lot of people talking when we have these international races and so on, is that people say, well, I don't know the form of how can I possibly, and we're coming up with one now, you know, I don't know the form of the Coolangatta race, or I don't know, how can I possibly? Well, I mean, we've had a long years with the internet, you know, the access to the information is all there, whether it be from a Hong Kong Jockey Club or from the Victorian Racing Association or wherever. There's all live feeds, there's all videos from everything. There's no excuse not to know how horses are doing from Argentina to Zimbabwe. I mean, all the information in the races are all on video everywhere. So, you know, so I always hear that, and it kind of irks me.
Like, yeah, no, I understand.
Everywhere in the world, you know.
I just put some information below the video player. It wasn't there. It should be there now or coming up very soon. We also have a fantastic website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Pete, very quickly tell people about the website for our new viewers out there.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the power picks. One good thing is if you're a little, you know, if you're interested in the power picks, but you're not 100% sure, you can go there. We usually post our last 15 so you could see examples. We also post our scores each week, so you'd be able to see pretty quickly if you click on it, this week's scores, last week's scores. But again, there's examples on there. There's also fun photos. All of us, you know, we take trips to various tracks. There's fun photos from there. There's examples of our podcasts on there. There's links to everything. There's links to the power picks. There's tournament results. So, you know, some of the guys on the HHH team have done really well in tournaments lately. So there's some results there. There's one great thing is there's tons of articles that Paul Halloran has written since we started the podcast. Obviously, he writes them all the time, but there's certain ones that we link there. So if you go to the articles page, you can read and you can get links to where Paul's fantastic articles are. And there's articles about some of the HHH guys on there as well. So there's tons of information. Go on there. It'll help you out. See if you're interested in a little bit more than just watching the pod.
And scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you see it right here, right now at the bottom of the screen. We have a show tomorrow night. I'm going to be in Minnesota, Davy, live at Canterbury Park in the winner's circle and in the paddock. So we're going to have a lot of fun with some big races in Minnesota tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Please check us out at 8:15 Eastern, and then our flagship show is Thursday. Davy, let's quickly look at comments, and we're going to get on to the next race here. Let's see, Christine Race. Great fan of the show. I had a great weekend playing only off the power picks. Both of my plays of the day at 2 different tracks won on the power picks last weekend. Davy, Thomas Minoz, yes, Monacan is scratched. That's a big scratch in this King's Stand we're going to talk about here. He actually scratched a little bit earlier today. Let's see, Front Speed only track, not playing to off pace runners. David, do you agree with Charles V? Do you want to be up close, or is it too early to say right now?
I think it's too early to say, but
okay,
we'll know more. We'll know more.
The last thing I want to say, and Pete, I love this. There's so many things I like about other jurisdictions. This is one thing I love about Europe that it bothers me like no end in the United States. The ASCOT assistant starters didn't waste any time. There's an issue with the 6 and the 7. Boom, scratched immediately, let the race go quickly. I know that doesn't allow people to change their bets, and people will be very frustrated by that probably here in the States. But you know what? It saves 5 or 6 minutes. It's gambling. I sort of like it. I don't know your opinion on that, Pete.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it either. I mean, the most annoying thing in U.S. racing is how slow it is just to get into the gate and get the race going, and any little hiccup winds up throwing it off by another 10, 15 minutes, it feels like. So, yeah,
Sure.
I mean, they let everybody walk around the track. It takes forever. Go ahead, David.
And that was the horse welfare thing, because the horses actually, that wasn't just a minor incident. Both horses were actually raised up, and so they had to do that even before the vets. They had to be safe.
Yeah.
All right, Davey, let's talk about the next race. And I want to bring up this. I think this is a really good website. For those of you that are not very familiar with this, this is from At the Races. It's a free website, attheraces.com. They have a lot of information on there. It's one of the premier sites in the UK for horse racing. It's like our DRF or Horse Racing Nation. It's excellent. You can see these are current odds right now of this next race as you see them. And the reason why there's different ones, and Dave, we won't really have time to get in this, but these are all different these are many different betting platforms or betting markets in the UK that you can go and bet from. Bookmakers, correct. So you see Highfield Princess is the favorite. But for those people that are not familiar, if you scroll down, there's a lot of different things you can look at. There's comments, predictors. There's many things on this site that are really good. We're not going to talk about that too much, but again, At the Races is one of the better racing sites for amateurs, especially here in the United States. Would you agree with that, Davey?
Yeah, it's very good. I use that, and along with Racing Post as well.
And Racing Post, I have Racing Post. I actually also write. Look at that. Just as we mentioned, here's Racing Post. Here's the Racing Post site. Anyway, it's right there. All right, Davey, there's current odds, right? What? We don't need to see advertisements. There's current odds. All right, Davey, the King's Stand. Let me go back to, let's go back to here. The King's Stand. 5 furlongs is a win and you're in. The winner of this race automatically qualifies for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, which, Pete, is 5 furlongs, I believe, at Santa Anita. They are not going down the hill. Don't ask me why. I hate it. But anyway, whatever. Moving on. Very talented group here, Davey. Let's talk about, you can see on the bottom of the screen, you're going 14, 12, 10. You are going with the American here, and it's a female, Twilight Gleaming, Johnny V. Look at these odds you're getting right now, Davey. You got to be excited.
Well, I got 20, 25 to 1, but I took it twice. But the British mare, the Highfield Princess, she's the big favorite here, and she's known to American audiences because she was in the Breeders' Cup Turf as a favorite. And her 1 3/4 length defeat to Caravel kind of looks better now in retrospect than it did then. Because really, if you remember that. So the Connections have a big plan. They plan to go back to the States. They plan to go to Hong Kong. They plan to go to Japan. They're going to follow all the big sprint races. It's a serious sprint horse. You've got to take it seriously. She opened up with a second place finish at York in a Group 2. She ran well. Nothing wrong with it. And last year she won 3 of the major Group 1s in England, Ireland, and France. So she's proven over the firm ground. There's no real weaknesses. No real sense that she'll blow out. She's going to be right there in the finish. It's only if she gets pipped by something else. One of that something else could be Coolangatta. This is the Australian super filly that beat Nature Strip, who won by 4.5 lengths last year. Now, she's a multiple Group 1 winner in Australia, including over 5 furlongs, Lightning Stakes. One thing to note, though, is that she is now carrying 3.5 kilos more than she's ever carried. So that's something to think about. Great gate speed. James McDonald aboard, arguably the best jockey in the world. And there's talk that she had a bad barrier trial. I don't know. Her price has fluctuated a bit like a Sadna. So that could be a bit of a warning. There was talk that she wasn't quite right. There was also talk late last week that she was a bit fizzy at at ASCOT when she went for a breeze. So there's questions there. And I
heard she maybe didn't travel great. Davey.
Yeah,
and the other thing that's fair to mention, these Australia horses are really good sprinters, very good. But for Australian horses, this is winter. right now in Southern Hemisphere. I remember when Black Caviar came over several years ago. Although he won, he did struggle. I really liked Cool and Gata at first, but I will mix emotions, Davy.
Take a beverage, Howard. Black Caviar was a mare, not a he.
Oh, mare, sorry. Oh, take a beverage. My bad. But the fact that it's winter in Australia, does that matter at all to you, Davy, coming here? Not
really, but there's been too many words about what might not have worked out right for the horse. So you've got to look that. And that's why I jumped on Twilight Gleaming at 25-1 earlier in the week, because there's a counterintuitive thing going on now. For a few years, once people recognized Wesley Ward and what he was initially bringing horses over like if I can remember the Ken Ramsey horse, Cannonball pops to mind. And finally he didn't win, and finally he won. And then everyone sort of ran to Wesley Ward and Wesley Ward every year, you know. And in the last couple of years, he hasn't been as prolific. And now they're running like all piling on to not bet him. You know, there's this kind of thing. And I think they're making a mistake, because I think Twilight Gleaming in his last race was a stakes record time. So this horse is primed. It's good. And I would say the same about American Rascal. I think they're both live. So I thought that was fantastic. And the price has come in. I mean, the price is now this morning was 16-1. So in from 25 to 16. So there is money coming for it.
Well, I heard you went we have video evidence of Davy going to his local bank, depositing, taking some money out for Twilight Gleaming and adding on to the total. I'm just kidding, Davy. Yeah. I was actually there at Keeneland. Pete, this was Grade 1 Gamble weekend. So Paul Howard and myself were there. We saw Twilight Gleaming in person. She was awesome, Davy. She broke a track record. I actually tried to beat her that day, in all fairness. She only went off at 2.77-1, Pete. But she aired, and she has the rail or an inside post. Again, the 14 is just the saddlecloth number. Pete, the way the far side draws are running, the low gates, this might work out real well for Twilight Gleaming on the inside here.
Yeah, especially with her running style too. If the track is leaning a little bit towards horses closer to the front, you assume Johnny V, like he did in the last race, is going to have her up close. She's really talented. I mean, it's a really deep field, but at that price, you're getting a super talented horse, and Ward can bring over winners. And I mean, here she's getting bet. She's down to 13, but she's super talented. I mean, I definitely have her on that top line of horses for me as well.
I'm going to show my my bets in this race. I'm trying to get Twilight Gleaming up on this, I'm trying to get Highfield Princess up on the screen. Let me bring Highfield Princess up. There's the PPs. I mean, she was outstanding last year, and she ran very well in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We'll show the replay, losing just the Caravel by a length, going around a bend. I think Highfield Princess is better on the straights, and that last race was her first run of the year, Davy, and it was also going 6. So she ran just fine. I don't really take that. I'm not really bothered by her loss. Go ahead, Davey.
She had a weight penalty as well, so she was carrying more weight, so she did well.
Yes, you see the 138. That's a lot of weight right there. This 138. Let me go and show everyone my personal picks on. So here's my plays, Davey and Pete, in this race. I'm hoping Highfield Princess finishes first or second. It's not the most creative thought, but I really think she has a great chance to come first or second. You see the 6 on there, but the 6 is scratched. I created these banners before I knew that. So I'm going to go 12 with 2, 10, 14, 19. We got to talk about Dramatized also real quick, Davey. And then, the 2 Australian horses, Twilight Gleaming and Dramatized. Then I'm going to reverse it, Davey. I'm going to go 6, 10, 14, 19 with 12. So basically, I need Highfield Princess to come in first or second. I'm weighing these or dutching them differently. I'm putting more on Highfield Princess on top and a little bit less with her second. Your thoughts on the bottom of the screen, either one of you, of my bets here. Feel free to trash them if you'd like.
Go on. Pete, go on.
No, no. No. I mean, they're very logical. I think those are the right horses. I think the only thing you're concerned about is it got a little chalky. So as long as you're weighing them right, I like the
Yeah.
6. The 6 was my top choice, so I was disappointed in the 6. Can I ask Davy real quick on a horse, just because the odds are really funny? The 5, Davy, Existent, was 99-1 on the morning line, 14-1 here in our market. Any reason why you would expect? I don't really know the reason why the betting is that strong on that horse.
Let me check the odds here because my
What are you getting?
I've got a bit of a frozen. Hold on, yeah.
I would say, Pete, I don't know anything about this horse, to be honest, but it is now Callan, the horse that won the bomb in the first race.
That's the only thing I
can
think of.
Did run pretty competitively against Dramatize and Equilateral both in this race. Any thoughts on this horse, Davy? I see, we see 13-1 right now, Davy.
Existence 100-1 shot here at the moment. So
I mean, it's crazy. 14 here. I don't know if somebody thinks they know something, but it doesn't look like a win contender. I mean, it ran some decent races and ran against a bunch of these horses, but
you know what it is? It's ridden by Neil Callan.
Yeah,
and he rode in Hong Kong for a while. So there's a Hong Kong.
That's true. There's
a Hong Kong man who's just.
Okay, there you go.
That's true.
That's crazy, Pete. You got 100-1 in one market and 13 in another.
I mean, that was the thing that jumped out to me as I'm looking at the odds. I was like, what am I missing on this? Because I don't have the horse. I'm glad it's taking money. I don't think it's going to come in, but what the hell do I know, apparently?
He's taking Hong Kong money. That's what he's taking.
Yeah.
The dollar trifecta in the last race, according to Racing Down Win, paid $5.99 for $1. So $600 for $1. If you have that with the chalk on top, River Tiber in that last race, Davy, you can absolutely get paid in this Royal Ascot meet, even if chalks win with getting bombs underneath, including the one you liked.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I didn't dislike River Tiber. I had it as a B in my piece. I just wanted to take him on.
Sure. Any other horses, Davy? Is there? We got a few minutes so that you want to mention to our fans to bet on, perhaps.
One thing you have to know: Dramatize gets a weight break, younger horse.
3-year-old filly, I believe, right? 3-year-old filly.
Yeah. 9 pounds over most of the rivals, 6 pound over the fellow Australian who's the same age. So, won a good to firm at Ascot last year. So, and his barn is a conflagration right now. The Carl Burke barn is, boom, it's on fire. So, that's a threat. Its last win was at Haydock. He got the right side. He got the right draw, and he had a great win, but it was aided by being on the right side of the track. So, but he's there. Yeah, she's there or thereabouts. So, wow, getting this gender thing right is hard. I laugh at you guys every week.
Isn't it? It's not quite as easy.
Davey, you have to watch what drink you have, because otherwise you might be slurring by the end of the podcast if you keep messing up.
Davey, you see the pics on the bottom of the screen, and we're gonna go to the race here in a minute. Yeah. I'm a little concerned with Dramatize with the far outside. Of course, I didn't know how the track was going to play when I made these selections on the bottom. Davey, should people be against Dramatize at this point, or don't let that bother you? The outside draw here, the high draw. Yeah,
this thing could flip. We'll see. I wouldn't put it down as a completely low draw track just yet. We'll see what goes on. I mean, maybe it's good to have one on the outside too. I mean, that can often happen. To play in both. And avoid the middle.
Pete, you're gonna have the final thought. You had the 6 on top who is scratched. You're gonna go with Highfield Princess now.
Yeah, I actually just played a triple. I have the Coolangatta, Highfield Princess, Twilight Gleaming, and Dramatized on the top and in the second spot. And then I added a few other horses in the third spot. So I'm hoping I would love to see Twilight Gleaming on top and then get one of the prices in the third spot. One thing with Dramatized, Howard, for the folks who follow sort of figures, real nice figure jump from a time form standpoint from Dramatized in his first race back. So it could just be that he just really, or she, sorry, just really improved from, you got me. Go. It's contagious now,
just run the damn mails with males and the girls stay with the no. Anyway,
But I mean, there was a huge time form jump. So if that's, and we look at that here a lot with
yes,
our buyers or time form, whatever figures you use. So it could just be that horse, she just improved a ton going
yeah,
from last year to this year. So we'll see if that shows up today.
that's a very good point. She's much improved. Davy, we're going to go to the race. For everyone on the show here, Davy, I'm rooting for, how about a 14-12, Davy? How about Twilight Gleaming over Highfield Princess? Would that work for you, Davy?
That works for me. Have you just played that? Yeah.
I do have that. I have that a little bit
Oh,
also.
good.
I have a little win bet on Twilight
14,
Gleaming, not as
12,
much.
14, 12, 4 would be lovely. I'll take
All right, let's go 14-12-4. Good luck to everyone in the 5 furlong King Stand. A win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup. Here we go, everyone. We have another possible upset, and I'm only saying possible because there is some serious drifting going on in this race. Bradsell, a horse we talked about earlier on the show, who won at ASCOT last year in the Coventry, the race that was just run before this race, has upset Highfield Princess. Pete, if this was in the United States, this would what we'd be calling herding, and I'm almost positive that Bradsell would come down if this was a race in the United States. Davy Lane, as you're watching it, Bradsell definitely drifted off of his line. Do you think he's going to stay up in this race? Davy, you're muted.
Yeah. I was listening to the analysis. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think Bradsell stays up. Going away at the end did drift, but the jockey Holly Doyle switched the crop, and so I don't think it's one of those egregious ones. And more than 3/4 of a length, you know, if this was down to a neck or a nose, they'd yes, but 3/4 of a length, no, I would say no.
I'll let you listen to the commentary, and I'll just talk to Peter for a minute. And
no, I heard all I need to hear, so it's good.
Okay, now Pete, we've oh boy, here we go again. Listen, I don't like neither one of us likes herding or when they sort of send horses out. It looked like the most egregious herd or drift out was really right at the wire or maybe past it, and it was 3/4 of the length. Is this a situation? Let's say it was the United States. Do you think the horse should come down, first of all, number one? Number two, if this is in the U.S., would the horse come down? And number three, Pete, is this one of those situations where you like the number to stay, but the jockey to get a suspension or a fine? Pete, as a potential adjudicator of this race, how do you view it?
Well, I think that I don't think it's cut and dry, the answer there, because I think in certain cases, if you could tell that it's the jockey and you could see sometimes, and it's really a judgment call, so it's tough, but if you could tell it's the jockey trying to gain the advantage, then maybe I like the idea of the jockey being the one that sort of takes the hit as opposed to the horse and the gamblers who have the horse and the connections and all of that. But in a certain case, like here, it looked like Highfield Princess was actually making a move. So until you see a few other angles, it's hard to tell if she was getting close and she was going to be able to go by if that didn't happen. So I think that's a judgment call as well, and it's subjective. But I mean, I think every circumstance is their own, and I don't know. It's hard to have a hard and fast rule. Is more my point.
A lot of people John Smith wanted Bradsell to get up. He definitely did. If he's going to stay, we've got Jay Skolnick here. Holly Doyle, who's been paying attention? She is one of the best riders in the world, plain and simple. It looks like Speed is playing very well. Also, Charles B mentions that. That was also the start of the pick four. We should have mentioned there aren't a lot of horizontal plays here. Do you agree with this, Davy, that from Jay, that stewards rarely uphold protests in the UK? Would you agree with that in general, Davy Lane?
It takes a really, really bad one for them to turn a race over. Yeah.
Michael Osen said that the stewards are ridiculous if he stays up. Michael, they don't treat it the same here in the UK as they do in the United States. I've seen many egregious acts that would come down in a heartbeat here in the States that don't come down there. So let's not. You can compare the two if you want, but it's not the same thing. I haven't seen anything official yet. Have you guys?
Yeah, you have to look at one thing. It's a huge wide track. This is where we're at, and horses will drift to open space. The jockey didn't switch the jockey switched the crop when she realized the horse was drifting, and
but a lot had happened though, Dave. I mean, at least from the one angle they showed, there was a lot going on before she switched the crop.
I thought so too.
That would be the concern, I think, especially if you're looking at it from our eyes.
She's still.
Yeah, I read her. There it is. I misspelled herd, but that's okay, JW. We'll give you a break.
But she did switch the crop, and the judges will look at that as enough, and she won by more than 3/4 of a length. So I don't think it comes down. And at the moment where Highfield Princess had the most sort of that moment where like the horse is necked, that it was over the line at that point already. So they'll look at that too. So I don't think it comes down at all. And it won by a lot. Now it would come down if it was by a nose or a short neck, but not now. That's my.
Yeah, I think the most egregious thing was right at the wire or right after the wire. So that now that I just saw another replay, so you're probably right there.
But here's the thing, Pete, and listen, I hear what both you guys are saying, and I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm old school, but here's how I feel in general. I'm more in the Matt Bernier camp. A foul is a foul. I mean, yes, she lost by 3/4 lengths, Davy, but how do we know that's not because she got pushed a little bit and drifted out and bumped in the middle part of the race, not at the wire, but before that? I mean, how do we know how much that affects the race? Is a jock just allowed to move out 3, 4, 5 paths, even if it is open space, when they have another horse on their hip? I mean, I'm not saying a horse is going to keep a complete straight line. These are real living things, but I don't know.
Well,
I don't like that. I don't. And she should get at least a fine or a minor suspension, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Hold on a minute. In the United States last week in the Belmont Stakes, Javier Castellano got all sorts of credit for when he was along the inside. Then he was clear by a few lengths. That what did he do? He had distance and he moved the horse out into the 2 or 3 path on purpose. That wasn't the horse drifting on its own kind of like I'm looking for space. That was Javier moving the horse. That's smart riding. Now that's not.
Can I interrupt, Davey? Big difference, Davey. When fair point, but there's a huge difference between this is apples and oranges to me, Davey. In the Belmont, when Arcangelo drifted into the middle of the track, he did not have any horse on his hip. He did not impede or bother anyone. He just drifted out when he was well clear into space. To me, and again, I lost this bet in this race anyway, so it doesn't matter. To me, Bradshaw was moving over on Highfield Princess, Davey and Pete. When Highfield Princess was on Bradshaw's hip, to me that makes a big difference, Davey. To me,
I'm not sure what you just described as hip. I mean, to me,
they were shoulder to shoulder. Is my point.
They weren't shoulder to shoulder. He was behind Highfield. She was behind.
Well, in the middle part of the race. Okay. Well, anyway, Pete, you know what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I think her head was probably towards the middle of Bradshaw's body, so it was enough to where there's potential. Maybe, there's maybe more of a half a length, and there's potential that could have slowed momentum. And if that's the case, I don't think it's egregious enough. I think I'm probably leaning more with Davey here, where I don't know if he would be big enough to take it down. Maybe here it would be different, but
here's the thing. I'm watching right now, and it's in the quiet. Holly Doyle is now live in the studio. I mean, I can't show it to you. She's live in the steward's room. I mean, do you guys want to see this, or is that breaking the law?
Technically, we can't do that, Davey. But
I won't.
You're showing your TV. You can do that. Go ahead, Davey. That's okay. Nice blinds. Okay. So this is fascinating. So what is this? Is this normal, David? Does this normally happen?
Yeah. This happens all the time. So Holly Doyle is on one, and they're with the stewards, and they're walking through the video and speaking. This is how it is. Now,
wow! So they're not on the phone, Pete. They're actually in the room. I love it, Pete.
I mean, that's the way it should be.
Holding their feet to the fire, right?
Taking from inside the furlong to the line, off my intended line.
Right. Okay.
The last quarter of a furlong, I was never really able to.
Is that?
That's
the jock? Oh.
Yeah.
What are they saying, Davey? Do you want to hear it? Go ahead, Davey.
Yeah, I can put it on if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll come back to you. Mr. Doyle, you heard what's been said, just a statement from your side, please.
Yeah.
You can turn up the volume, Davey, if you want, on the TV.
I've gone to win my race, and he's picked up really well and cooked him up nicely. And it was just approaching the line. I could feel him lugging left, so I pulled my stick through to my left hand as quickly as I could. And I think he was just having a look at the crowd in the exit. And I've kind of used my right hand to try and straighten him up as well as I could. But I think he was winning, going away in the end. And he never actually made any contact with Highfield Princess.
Just looking at the 2 shots you got there, Mr. Hart, can you just explain to us from your perspective when you feel there was pressure placed on your mouth?
So right, coming, just as I pulled my stick through, I was coming with a run. If you go back maybe 3 strides, I thought I was coming with a run.
It's inside the half a furlong, is it?
Yeah, if we go back about 3 straights,
Yeah.
I thought I was coming with a winning run. I've definitely got to miss those Garth and thought I was going to go and win my race, to be quite honest. And then I know that the winning distance in the end is a length, but I've the last sort of 2 strides I've had to watch what I'm doing. So I felt like coming here now, I thought I was coming with a winning run.
Yeah. Where are you there in relation? How far down would you be on the stall at that stage?
Well, as you can see there, so my head is on Mr. Those quarters. That was where I thought I was coming with a winning run, and just kind of.
That's what 9 or 10 strikes before the line, if I count that, would that be correct?
I can't really say 13, but.
I've got no further questions, Ryan. So other than changing your whip at that stage, what were you doing with your right hand?
I was really leaning into the right rein.
Yeah.
Keeping straight. It was when he saw the exit. Initially he was running straight. You can see the lines on the track, straight. And then as soon as he's kind of gone to the left, put my stick straight through. I don't think I could have done much more here. You can see I'm hanging off the side of him to try and keep him straight. And it's literally the stride before the line.
We attempted to straighten.
Well, I attempted a few strides before, but it was the stride before the line where he really wanted to go to the exit.
You're still riding him forward at that stage up until.
Yeah, I'm running forward, but it's quite hard because he's going sideways driving forward. But I think he's one with a bit up his sleeve, to be honest, with doing what he's done.
Right. Thank you. I've no further questions.
You went slightly with. Just explain who the 3 people in the middle there are. On the left is Sophie Candy, who's a steward today.
Okay.
The stewards panel chair on the right.
Davy,
Is
are they going to say on live TV what their decision is, or do they go off screen and then talk?
Well, they're deliberating right now, and now the media guys are back talking. So they'll spend a minute or 2 deliberating, and then there'll be a klaxon announcement, and then the guy will say the race has been overturned,
but
or what have you.
Is the deliberation between the stewards off air or on air on the TV?
Right now it's off air, but it's generally off air once the jockeys have left.
Is this normally done, Davy, in big races where the whole world can see exactly what they're saying?
Yes, all the time. The big race.
Pete, what are we doing in this country? Because here, Davy, they get on a phone. I'm sure you know this, Davy, but they just get on a phone. All we do, Pete, is we see jockeys on a phone talking. We know this is fantastic, Pete. This is the transparency that we need and that we crave. Why the F can't we do this in the United States? I think that was great.
I think there's two things to knock out about this. There was an incident at the St. Leger about 5 or 6 years ago, and I had the horse that was promoted to first place on a ticket of mine, and I won a bit of money. But it was said at the time that the jockey, and it was one of Aidan O'Brien's jockeys, had a better way with the language than the other jockey, and made his case more eloquently. So that's number one to think about. So that may not be fair on jockeys whose language isn't English, number one.
No doubt. We've talked about that here in the States. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's number one. And the other thing is what I find quirky and interesting about America. America always finds, and I know I was there a while, how to market things. And I think where horse racing has fallen behind, that it doesn't realize that you can turn the whole drama of a steward's inquiry into a whole event itself. You know, this steward's inquiry is brought to you by Pepsi, and you've got a 2-minute discussion.
Wait, brought to you by the HHH Racing Podcast. Pete, get on the phone. Let's go. Let's make a deal right now.
You can have that sponsored, and you can have transparency, and it's like court TV. You know, people will be watching the races, and they'll enjoy that as a spectacle. Jesus, they're going to spend 3 minutes watching it, and they're going to find out about racing more and the whole process. And instead of just nonsense going on the screen, you know, like, this is an interesting part of the dynamic. Why not promote it, and why not advertise it and get it a whole segment? I don't know
the way our personalities work in the U.S., Davey, they'll wind up having an inquiry every race just so they could be on camera. So I don't know. We might have 10 inquiries a day at that point.
There you go.
So, okay, they left it up. Everyone out there, they left it up. No change. Bradzell and Holly Doyle, as Davey predicted. And I think Pete and I, we thought that'd probably be the case. But if it was in the U.S., it would be I think there'd be, I don't know. I don't know what would happen. But I'll tell you what, that was some of the best few minutes we've had here on this podcast in 2.5 years, Pete. Davey, we appreciate you showing that on TV. I don't know if I just broke a rule, but what the hell? Who cares? I don't think the FCC is going to come after us, Pete. I think we'll be good.
So. Yeah. But I couldn't see exactly the quality of it, so I wasn't quite sure what the viewers were seeing, but I hope it was okay. So
no, it was great. We could hear it. It was very clear. In terms of the Hispanic jockeys here in the States not speaking as well, Pete, then let's just have an interpreter then and make it fair. I mean, Pete, what we just saw would change the way that I think bettors view things here in the States. I think it would be absolutely tremendous. Davey, I can't say enough good things. That didn't go my way. I did have a win bet on Highfield Princess, the smaller one. I played more exactas, so I didn't have Bradzell anywhere. But Davey Lane,
one thing on Bradzell, and I did raise it. I did raise it in the discussion. They paid a $5. The horse wasn't entered in this race. After its last win, they weren't even thinking about this race. They paid a 5-figure supplementary fee. I mean, I threw out a clue for the punters. I didn't bet it myself because I thought that I was thinking elsewhere. But there you go. But there was a good clue there. You got to look at supplementary horses. And while we're on the subject, there's a couple of other horses that were entered. And let's just get this out the way. There's a horse entered called Where's my notes?
Hey, Davey, I got to put a comment in while you're looking. Craig Schrader's a good friend of mine. Craig, welcome to the show, man. I hope you're still listening. He wants to know if I was commissioner, would I make a deal with the Saudis? No. Definitely. Craig knows the answer to that question. I would not, but Craig, thanks, man, for joining the show. Hope you're enjoying it. Go ahead, Davey.
Yeah, 2 horses, and there could be a couple more, but you have to keep track of it. This is part of like the horse racing puzzle. You got to keep track of all the information. It's not just spoon fed to you. You have to go and look for it. Supplemented horses. There's one called Rogue Millennium, and there's another one, a John Gosden horse, Asafia. So those 2 horses later in the week to watch for. Rogue Millennium is now. It was in Laurel's race that was taken out, so he's 16s into about 9-1. He's got a chance, and Al Safar is a big favorite. So if you want,
they should actually have that in the PPs. They should have sort of an indicator of that in the PP, so you wouldn't have to chase down the information. It wouldn't take much for them to do that.
Yeah. So there you go.
A few other comments, then we're going to take a quick break and give ourselves a chance to get a glass of water. We'll come back real quick. Jay Skolnick would like to know if we're going to do a live show on the Spring Racing Carnival in Australia. Now, Davey, you've been telling me let's do some more stuff worldwide. Yeah. I don't know if there's interest in doing stuff for Hong Kong or Australia, but there's great racing all over the world. The problem is that's 2 or 3 in the morning our time. So I don't know if we can do that here, but
I know a guy who works on the racing.com thing, and I can have a word with him, and you could get him on as a guest. So yeah, that could work.
Okay. Craig Schrader, my good friend, says there's nothing much else to do. He's actually teaching summer school, Pete and Davey. So he's like, why not not actively teaching. He's sort of supervising. But anyway, that was great. Let's do this, guys. We're going to take a short break because, of course, that inquiry. Do you guys have a minutes to post for the last race here? I don't see it yet.
Yeah,
it's supposed to go off at
4:20, right?
Will they delay it, Davey? Or are they still going to go off at that time?
They'll go off at that time.
Wow, I love UK racing. All right, well, anyway, we're going to take a short break anyway, guys. We're going to take about a 2-minute break. We're going to collect our breaths. Davey, again, thanks a lot for showing.
I'm just remembering, I had Bradzell as a C. So, again, a lot of this is stitching the right things together. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break, everyone. Let me put it up on the screen. Don't go anywhere. We've got one more race that we're going to be covering. I think people at home are like, just keep covering the whole card. We're just going to do 4 races today, guys. But please continue to listen to the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm just bringing up a banner here. We will be right back. Go ahead, Davey. You want to say one more thing?
I just want to say, if people are interested in the last races, some of my better opinions are in the last races. And I do have a bet of the week. It's not a bomb, but it's a good price, an 8-1. So I'll throw that out there for folks later on.
You're talking about race 7 today, correct? When you say the last race.
Yeah, there's races 5, 6, and 7 today. I'll throw some opinions out later on. And there's one during the week. There's a few during the week. I'll throw out some, including one that I really like. And there you go.
Let's do that after race 4, Davey, and you can talk about that. All right, we're going to take a very short, about a 2-minute break, everyone. We will be right back on the HHH Racing Podcast. Welcome back to the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz. We have live coverage here of Royal ASCOT as Davy is getting drunk because he's losing some bets, but that's okay. It's all good. We got to get Davy on Bettin and Boozin, Pete, tomorrow night. I think that'd be perfect. We're here with Pete Bisco
Just
as
keep
well.
drinking.
Great co-host. We love live drinking on the show. What do we got there, Davy? Ooh, Pete, what do you think?
Maybe not as the first one. Maybe after a couple, then I'd be able to get into that one.
All right. Very exciting stuff going on here on the podcast. We got one more race left to cover here on the podcast, but there are 7 races total. There's 3 more races after our coverage here. What's going to happen is we're going to talk about the race 4 coming up here at ASCOT. It's the St. James Palace. This is for restricted 3-year-olds. It is the 420 race, so to speak. So, well, it happens at 420 local. I don't think I need to really say much more about that for those people who like to partake in certain activities. But anyway, the St. James Palace, restricted 3-year-olds. After this race, Davy Lane's going to tip out some horses in races 5, 6, and 7 for the rest of today. Again, Bradsell wins the King Stand. One quick question, Davy. Bradsell and the winner of the triple point. What was the name of the first one? The winner of the first race? Triple something.
The Queen Stand.
Triple time it was. Triple time is the name of it.
Triple
Davey,
time.
based on the connections and your knowledge, Triple Time and Bradsell, are they likely to come?
I did scratch it off my list, but if you look here, you see Triple Time right here.
I do. We do see that.
That was my, Hey, listen, you have the horse, and then for some reason, a few days later, you scratch it off your list.
We know that feeling.
Yeah.
Davey, based on their connections, Triple Time and Bradsell, are they likely to come to Santa Anita here in the States in November for the Breeders' Cup?
Maybe Triple Time. Yeah, Obeyed. Yeah, for sure. Kevin Ryan has sent horses to the States many times. I mean, you've seen his, what's his sprinter? You Bet His Sprinter a couple of times there
Yes.
a couple of years ago. Blocking on
what about Bradsell and their connections? Your feeling?
I don't know. I would think they'd be more interested in golf stuff in the winter. So I would guess that. But
okay, all right. This is the last race of the day that we're going to talk about. It's the St. James Palace. They're going a mile. Now, we talked about this before. If you didn't join us earlier for the show, I think I took it off screen. But there is a slight bend here, a right-hand turn in this particular race. Davey, does this favor inside or outside draws because of the slight bend, or doesn't matter to you?
It doesn't matter. It's about getting position, and I think this is a bend where you can get stuck. You can get cut behind horses. So you got to be a good rider on your toes.
Your thoughts right now in the betting market, Davey? You can see on the screen, Chaldine is a small favorite over Paddington.
Yeah, I was against favorites. Modern News in the first. I was against Tiber. I was right on one, wrong on another. And in the race just then, I wasn't against Highfield Princess, so to speak. But I thought it would be, it was a possibility for a lot of things to happen. In this race, I'm also against the favorite. I'm against Frankie Dettori. I'm against Chaldine.
Why, Davey?
Chaldine hasn't really won a race on good to firm ground. It's just run on soft conditions. I think it'll get. If there's a small horse, I think it'll get found out. It'll be run off its feet in this ground today.
Wow. Okay.
I agree. I had the same note, Davey. So I'm happy to have the same note as you on some of these. So.
All praises to Allah. Hey, we got it right.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless we both sound like idiots at the end.
I want to praise to someone else, but that's okay. Depending on your on who you believe in. But anyway.
That last race was a weird one too, because the horse that ran second was all over the track, or it looked like it could have been a tighter race. I think High Royale was all over the track, just going left and right, and couldn't stay straight. It looked like it could have maybe given Chaldine a little bit more of a run for his money, but just couldn't stay straight.
Well, there's 3 sets of guineas form coming into this: the French guineas, the Irish guineas, and the English guineas. I'm leaning towards the French guineas. as the winning move. Although I respect the Irish Guineas a lot, I don't see the form of the English Guineas playing out at all in this race. Soft track, etc., etc. You know.
Let's talk about the horse you like. There are two horses in this race that have huge upside, Davy. I thought, listen, you're the expert in the over in Europe, but I thought this is a very tough race. I thought that there's some very good 3-year-olds here that are serious players, and two of them are prices. One is Cicero's Gift, who absolutely aired last time at Goodwood, and then your top choice, Isaac Shelby, for a very underrated trainer, and Brian Meehan, William Buick taking them out.
Right. Well, I like Isaac Shelby in terms of his pace figures, and it ran a Guineas prep on pretty good ground, the Greenham. And actually, Frankie Dettori was on Chaldean in that race and was dislodged as the race started. But that horse won at a lightning time form figure. I don't have it at hand, but it was very, very good. It went to France for the French Guineas, and Sean Levy, the jockey, rode it. Went a bit early, I think, and Mikel Barcelona nailed him on the line. And the guy Levy, he lost the ride because of this. Buick's got the mount. But one thing to bear in mind while we've been talking about supplementary fees and various owners and what have you. This horse, Isaac Shelby, was sold last month from Manton Thoroughbreds, a UK-based thing, to a Qatari group called Watnan Racing. So there's another thing to bear in mind. While you can spend time studying the races, like we're all working stiffs ourselves and this, that, and the rest, there are guys with lots of money, with lots of time, who study a lot more stuff, and then they spend the money. So if someone's gone and spent big money to own a horse, they've gone through all the variables. You gotta bear that in mind. So this is a serious horse that should have won the French Guineas. And if you look at what happened, with the form in France, I mean, you're looking at what was the Blue Seine? Was the French?
Yeah.
It's panned out well. I'm blocking on the other.
No, that's okay.
But
there are the names if you need some help there, Davey.
Also beat him, ran well subsequently. Yeah.
You're talking about this one right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Davey, and Pete, I'm very honest in this show. I think being transparent and giving full disclosure is important. This is my biggest win bet of the day, guys, and I just made it on my ADWs. I really like Paddington. We're not going to have time to deep dive here, Davey, or show replays, but I think this horse, the ground's going to suit him, I think, better than Chaldean, Ryan Moore, Aiden O'Brien. Right now, I think I'm getting, let's see what I'm getting here, 2-1 as of this moment. We're getting 3s. Talk about this horse, Davey, and then Pete, I'll let you talk about your choices.
Winner of the Irish Guineas, powered away in doing so. Horses that were in the English Guineas came over, powered away from them. Aiden O'Brien, it's won 3 of its starts this year. The English Guineas runner-up, he beat in the Irish Guineas, so High Royale, a lot to like.
Yeah, and Cairo's a horse that we've heard of over here. I think ran in the Breeders' Cup last year, if I recall. Peter was considering going to the Breeders' Cup. I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Pete,
then High Royal was the one who I was talking about who lost, and I thought could have been a little bit more competitive with Chaldean if he could have ran straight. But no, I love Paddington. I thought Paddington was the best bet of these early races as well. It just seems to have come back really strong. The first 2 races of the year were on heavy, soft, good. It's basically run on all different types of surfaces and has been really good in each of them. I like the field that he beat last out. I just think he looks strong, and you're getting 2-1. I think it's 2-1 still, 9-5 right now. So I think that's a solid price, especially when the 6-5 choice has some negatives, I think, if you could talk about where I think that horse is better on the soft. So I wound up scrapping my picks here. I bet a cold triple actually in this race. So I have the 8 Paddington over Isaac Shelby, Davy's horse, and then Cicero's Gift in third, and just toss the 1 completely.
Davey, real quick, and then we're going to go to the race. There's a little bit of love for the number 4 in the chat. Any thoughts on the number 4 in here?
Yeah. That horse gets James McDonald, the New Zealand rider, and he could be the difference. The horse was closing in both of his races in the classics. Softer ground, it gets firmer ground here. Could be a threat. For a piece of this for sure.
I like the 5 Indestructible. If you toss the races on the soft course, the form looks really good for an underneath, and it's sitting at 37-1. So if you want to take a shot with a bomb underneath.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, guys. It's the St. James Palace for restricted 3-year-olds. They're in the gate. Come on, Paddington. Paddington wins this. I'm out for the day, guys, and then some. So for me, let's get this 8 home. Enjoy race 4. It's day 1, Royal Ascot on the HHH Racing Podcast. That's what I'm talking about. There we go. Paddington rolls in the St. James Palace. Wow. What a serious 3-year-old. Absolutely blew by Chaldine. Davy, great call on the 1. He was completely against this horse. Got the lead. Had absolutely no excuse. Paddington not only wins this, Davy, going away, hands and heels, but was uncovered for a good part of the race and was 3 wide into the turn. Davey, this is an absolute monster. You're
Davey,
muted, Davey.
you're on mute, Davey.
You're muted, Davey.
Sorry
That's okay.
that.
I did it earlier.
Yeah, absolute beast to do exactly what you said, to come round 3 wide, no cover, and win like he did. And look at the head carriage. The horse wants it. The horse wants to win. Great performance. It was an A in my. It was an A in my sheet. But I want to. You're gambling. I tried to take him on. That's what you do. So well
I
done,
mean,
Howard. Listen,
you know what, Pete? We've talked about this on our
I
show.
played the horse I won. I played it anti-post like 3-1 like a few weeks ago. So it's like I've won, but there you go.
We've talked about this in the show a lot. I have not been great today up to this point, Pete. We've had long shots or roughies that haven't worked out well. I've tried to mix them in, but I lost literally several bets, almost every bet I've made today, to be very honest, until now. And when you have a strong opinion, Pete, no matter if it's Paddington, some 10 claimer, main claimer at home here in the States, you have to pound your opinion. It's something I've learned over the years, especially from Matt Miller, our good friend who's excellent in contests. We've talked about not just about handicapping, but how to bet, Pete. And you and I just had a nice cash there on Paddington. It got me out for the day and then some. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the key. You don't want to pinpoint. I mean it's okay to maybe dabble on some of the others, but if you pinpoint your best bet, you don't want to get it, especially when you're losing the early races. You don't want to be like, oh well, I lost the first few, so I'm not going to bang the 8 as much as I wanted to do here. So
yes, Craig Shader, you
key.
actually bet a horse that I tipped out, and the horse won. So congratulations to Craig and everyone else. Thank you, Craig. Picked it at the right time. It was also Pete's top pick. Want to give Pete full credit as well. I don't know where they go. Well, Davy, talk about Paddington and the 3-year-old races out in Europe for people that don't know. What are the next steps for this horse going forward?
Well, potentially, well, they could. It depends how much distance they think it can go. I mean, it can go in lots of different directions. It's the 3-year-old later in the year. It's got the King George in the summer if they fancy going that way. That's at Ascot. That brings the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds together for the first time. That's a possibility. There's the Irish Champion Stakes. They could go for that. Just pull it out there a second. Let me just check.
Pete, do we know what I have the exacta too. I mean, it's not going to be great, but it is beating the favorite. It should be okay. Can't be that bad.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, it would have been.
What do we got? Oh, it doesn't say. We don't get
Sorry,
the probable.
I complete balls up there. I'm thinking the wrong age. I'm all over the place.
That's okay.
I'm talking King George, second, third year. No, there'll be the Irish Champion Stakes meeting in September. They'll be looking to go to that, and yeah, that'll be the main focus of this horse.
Okay. Trish, what are you doing tomorrow morning, Davy? They wanted every morning of the meet. They want to be live tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We do have lives, folks. Sorry.
It's hard to shoehorn you into the 4 races when it's 35 races and like your best opinions are dotted all around the place and so on like this, So,
Shireen or Sharon, I'm not sure I pronounced ran third. It's going to be 8-1-2 will be the final result of the St. James Palace. Pete, did you have the exacta also or no?
No. I played a triple and none of them. I tossed the 1, so I was hoping that the 1 would get beat, but the 1 just on class hung on over the rest of the field. So I mean that's when you're looking for some bombs to come in, you're hoping the 1 just craps the bed a little bit, and he did. And he ran fine. I mean, wasn't terrible, just was outclassed by the 8.
Yeah. No doubt about it, Pete. Davey, I mainly did 8 with 3-6, but I also did a little bit 8 with 1 also. There was no way I was doing 1-8. I was against the 1 anyway. And I almost hesitated to do 8-1. But again, Pete, for those people out there that are not, that are more amateurs or just feel like they're good handicappers, but we talk a lot about betting and gambling, Davey, and how to tip these horses. Yeah. You have to, if you're going to do an 8-1 exacta, you really ought to do that more than your 8-3 or 8-6. And it's called Dutching, again, betting different amounts to get the same result. That's how good gamblers play this, right, Pete and Davey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Davey, one thing you said, you talked about which one of the sort of guineas you were going to favor. If you like the Irish, if you were the person who liked the Irish guineas and like Paddington, Sharin, or however you pronounce the 2, came out of that race and finished a pretty nice 4th behind 2 other quality horses. So If you were just going to say, you know what, we do that here all the time. We're like, this is the strong race. I'm going to follow the horses out of this race as opposed to the others. You could have maybe gotten to a nice 35-1 shot underneath if you were playing trifectas and such.
For sure.
Davey, here's how we're going to end the show. And again, we really appreciate everyone joining. Don't leave yet, because right now, Davey's going to tip out some other horses that he likes going forward today in races 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to close the book selfishly for myself. I'm happy with that win, and I've got big things going on. And Pete, we'll talk about tomorrow night's show, because if people want more live racing action, Pete, tomorrow night we're going to get it, and yours truly will be in the paddock and winner's circle tomorrow at Canterbury Park for big stake races. Davey, I'm going to bring up your ABC selections again.
Okay.
People have been
That's a good
here
way to do it. Yeah.
and you can tip out some horses in races 5, 6, and 7 today, and then anything else you want to tip out the rest of the week. So, Davey Lane, the floor is yours. Here's your ABCs. Please talk about some horses you like going forward today only.
Okay, so the 3 remaining races today, 2 of them, the Ascot Stakes, race 5 and race 7, have been targeted by jumps trainers, such as Willie Mullins and Ireland. These are horses that run over the jumps and they get fit and they're trying to go a long distance at Ascot, prestigious win, and so on. So the 2 favorites in the race 5 and race 7 are Bring on the Night, which hasn't raced for a year because they've been saving it for this race, and Vauban in race 7. Now, Vauban is one of those horses that they're looking to go to the Melbourne Cup. That's the plan with it. That's an American owner, a guy called Rich Ritchie, of all names. That'll be in the you can't make it up. So those horses are hot favorites, and they're very good. I would look actually in these races at playing tries in the final 3 races to try and get out of jail. If you're trying to get out of jail, that's what I would do. And I would look at what I've had there as the ABs, and I would box Bring on the Night, a horse with no name, and I was speaking to someone involved with the connections of that horse earlier this morning, etc. So that drifted in the market, but it shouldn't be. It's got a chance. Calling the Wind, which has the young jockey Billy Loughnane, and Law of the Sea. Same owner as Ray Shoon, same trainer as Ray Shoon, who I can't keep dining off Ray Shoon. People will think I'm, That's why I look
60-1, Davey. For those people who don't know, Davey, we have new people joining the show all the time. Davey, I got to say it. 2 years ago, Davey tipped out a horse called Ray Shoon at 60. That's right, 60-1, and he won at Royal Ascot, and he tipped it on the show. Go ahead, Davey.
All right, so that's the set. So I would box those 4 if people see them. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you've got the names.
That's
now,
okay. They got the names.
In the next race, the Wolferton. There's a horse that actually, I think it came to the States, Cadillac.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and I followed that horse a long time. It switched to George Bowie. It had a gelding, and it's hot right now. This is a group horse running in a listed race, and Francesco Clemente is a Peter Brand horse. Americans will know him.
Oh.
So yeah, that's a Peter Brand. That's a very good horse. And Buckaroo is a horse owned by the Qatar Racing guys, but a stake of it, 50%, was bought by an Australian in the last few weeks called Aussie Care. So that's 50%, and they're looking at going down to Australia with that horse as well. So what I would do then is I would box my B as well, the O'Brien horse, because I can't leave him out now. Those 4 horses in a try, and finally the last race, I'd do the same thing, because even though Vauban is in that category of a moral can't lose, won't lose, you've got to be careful. And Rolling Dynasty is William Buick for Charlie Appleby. Point King is an Australian-owned horse, James McDonald riding, and Chillingham. So I would box those 4. So that's 4 trifectas I would promote for the end of the day to try and get a big score to end the day. In one of those 3 races. So that's what I'm playing myself. Okay.
Very good. Hey, Davey, we got a question for you from Jay Skolnick on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think the Yanks will ever adopt the concept of exchanges and laying horses to lose, trading both sides for percents, etc.? Any thoughts?
Yeah, they must do. I mean, this is the thing about America. At some points, they have the things that are the first in the world, lightning fast, and it's running parallel to something that's running like molasses. You know, like these jockeys it's bizarre. It's a bizarre sense of like, you know, high-end capitalism and then third world kind of stuff going on at the same time. You know, it's bizarre, you know? So, of course they will. They have to. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, you've got computers, right? You all play the stock market. Everyone's got, you know, they all know what Procter & Gamble went up like 2 points yesterday. I mean, so why not with the horses? Why not in the market? So it has to come. I don't know what the entrenched forces are that's stopping it, but it has to. And they have to adopt it, because once you adopt it, you can work out new ways of, you know, making tickets. And
Pete, the more I watch
groups, yeah.
Pete, the more I watch international racing, the more I agree with Davy. We're just behind. I mean, you see Hong Kong and other jurisdictions, they have a wire. They have like the camera right on the wire with like a line right on the wire, and you could just tell within 10 seconds who comes first, second, and third. They put the placings up right away. They interview. We're just slow and behind, and there's no reason for it, Pete. I totally agree with Davy on many factors.
Well, I mean, the reason is that everybody just does their own thing in each jurisdiction, and there's nobody thinking about the game holistically and trying to make changes. And you're never. It's hard to do that. I mean, it's hard to make those, and you know, we're always behind. By the way, I'm with Davey on one pick. I love Point King in the last race of the day. I don't think it was his top choice, but I really like Point King. Hopefully, you can get a price on that one.
Okay.
If you've enjoyed the show, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to wrap up here in just a second, whether you're new to the show or not, there are several things that we would appreciate you could do. First of all, again, please make sure you subscribe on the bottom. Well, I'm not on the bottom. So on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, please hit that subscribe button. It will send more people to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. It costs you absolutely nothing. You won't get any ads. It just tells YouTube that you're interested in this show. Hit the notification bell also at the bottom of the screen and smash that like button. We'd really appreciate it. There are also ways to donate to the channel as well. You can look that up through our website, and in the chat you can donate as well if you'd like. Any denomination, we appreciate it. Most importantly, we also have power picks down below the video play. I'm going to show that once again. And Paddington would have, if I did power picks today, Pete, I'm sure you'd agree with this, Paddington would have been one of our top choices. Obviously, we said it before the race of the day. And listen, we got threes, Davey. There's nothing wrong with 2-1 and a horse that aired. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Look below the video player. I'm sending out power picks, Pete, and I just did it for myself. I didn't want to ask you or Paul to get involved because you guys are too busy. But I was happy to do it. I'm sending out a special limited power picks just for tomorrow night, Pete, for Canterbury card. It's going to be emailed out tonight to anyone that subscribes to our power picks. Davey will receive it. So look below the video player. It's only $16 for the entire month. It's only $4 every weekend. I highly recommend that tip sheet. And of course, we have a website also. But final thoughts, Pete and Davey, as you wrap up a long morning here. Davey, there's some other horses you want to tip out later this week.
Yeah, for later this week. Let me do that. And I could vomit out horses for every day of the week and so on, but I don't need to get people confused. The horse for the closest for a bomb is about 20-1 right now. Is tomorrow's Hunt Cup Orban, ORBAAN, David O'Mara. The guy David O'Mara won with the Woodbine Mile with a horse I won a lot of money on. Fergal Lynch rode him. I'm blocking on the name.
Which race is that, Davey?
That would be the Royal Hunt Cup. That would be race 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's the 5 o'clock, correct?
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up on the screen. And what's the name of the horse?
Orban. ORBAAN.
I'm going to bring it up right now for people here. There we go. The 19 in race 5 tomorrow, I believe.
Okay, that's the closest to a bomb I can find. There's plenty of horses. There's plenty of other horses I do like, the usual, the Tahiras and all the rest of it. Petals and Rubies on Friday. It hasn't been declared yet, so that I would hold off on that. But the horse that I think is my biggest bet of the week is on Thursday in the Hampton Court, and that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's this race 6 on Thursday. I don't know if you have that up.
That's coming up right now. Yeah.
Right. This is my biggest bet. And there's a horse there called Carnarvon.
There it is. Here we go. This is the number. This is on Thursday, the 5:35 race 6. Davy Lane's pick of the week in the Hampton Court Stakes, a Group 3. It is the number 16, Carnarvon. Go ahead, Davy.
Yeah. Reason I like it. This horse was 3rd in the Guineas, and it pulled out of the French race, the French Guineas, at the last forfeit stage on Friday. And so we've got a top quality Group 1 horse going into a Group 3, number 1. And there's a subtle thing I'm going to tell you, how sometimes you don't have to get yourself buried in the details, that the hints can be all over the place and you don't even realize it. The trainer is someone called Jack Shannon. Jack Shannon's the son of a guy called Mick Shannon. Mick Shannon was a quote-unquote Premier League soccer player, England international soccer player in the 70s and 80s, became a trainer. He trained Zane to finish 2nd in the Arc twice, once to see the stars. So he's been a top trainer. He retired 2 years ago or last year. He put out a tweet. Not many people saw it. Maybe 17 people liked it and so on, with a dusty top hat. That's all. And he said on the tweet, I'll be going to Royal Ascot for the first time in 6 years this week. Just left it at that, cryptic. You say to yourself, well, what is he going for? Is he going for Jack's 4 other runners, which are like, 30 to 1 shots, 20? Probably not. I think this is the race he's going to go to win. And that's just when you need a little bit of something to sort of like firm up what you've already decided. The clues can be everywhere. They're not necessarily amongst all the details, because there are things people know that they know, and they're wanting you to share it. And he's put the clue out, and I was betting him anyway, and that's just the extra. That just tells me whatever. So that's a horse, not a bomb, but a horse I like, and we'll be betting big on Thursday. Okay.
Good. I will be making that bet sometime on Thursday for sure, just on Davy's recommendation, Pete.
Okay.
By the way, Jay Skolnick was talking to us from Australia, who mentioned also, Davy, it's easier to lay them to lose than back them to win. He's talking about exchanges and whatnot. So Jay from Australia, Pete, we got people all over the world watching the show. By the way, just to wrap things up, Paddington paid $6.20. Hey, Pete, that extra 20 cents matters when you bet, hundreds of dollars, etc.
It's all money.
And the exacta was 7.2 to 1. So the exacta was much better than I thought personally. We got 14.40 for 2, Pete, and I had the exacta also. In case anyone cares out there, I won for the day. Not a lot, but I did win for the day. Profitable day for me. Pete, let's have you go first, and then Davey second. Final thoughts on these 4 races, Pete, that you saw at Royal Ascot today.
I mean, it just shows why betting these cards is a good idea. If you're not intimidated, I know in the US we get a little intimidated sometimes by the PPs don't look right, the fields are really big, I don't know the connections, but you can make scores on these big days, the ASCOT meet or some of these other big days in Europe. You can make some pretty big scores. The triples pay well, the exactas pay well. Like you're talking about, you just had 2 chalks and it paid 7 to 1, and it was relatively obvious on paper where you could have easily come up with that. So don't be afraid to dive in. Especially this week, we have 5-6 days left or whatever it is, whatever today is. I'm losing track already. Stick with it. Give it a shot. These are fun days to bet, and you can get some prices. Don't have to lay on the favorites too much.
Wise advice, Pete. And some people in the chat definitely scored on some big prices today. So congrats to all you that won with some roughies or long shots. Davey, just specifically on the first 4 races we saw, any final thoughts? Who impressed you the most? What was your biggest surprise? Just general thoughts on what we saw this morning.
Paddington impressed me the most. I was disappointed with Shelby and Chindit. Those are 2 of my stronger plays, today. Disappointed with them. Pleased with myself for having found Light Infantry at a price. I did find the other horse, but I rubbed him out at some point. Generally not a profitable day so far, but I've got 3 big try bets coming up, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, there you go. So we'll be watching those, and I'll be switching on the horse racing Twitter and throwing a few ideas out the rest of the week if people want to look. And I don't talk exclusively about horse racing on the Twitter. I use it for all sorts of things. So don't feel like you're going to find things out from me there very often. I mix it around.
I also want to mention Phil Edwards. Phil Edwards is a good friend of yours, Davy, friend of mine. Phil Edwards on Twitter. And I'm going to see if I can find his exact. Well, you can look it up. It's like at Philip Edwards. But anyway, he's a very sharp guy. He's another good follow. I actually tweeted it out. He's a really good follow on Twitter. He's actually been on the show once before, 2 years ago when we did a live show. So again, Philip Edwards is another good person to follow. Davy, I've had a blast, man. We love having you on. We look forward to having you on again. No, it's not going to be tomorrow morning, everyone. Sorry, we have lives. I've got, as I'm looking here, I have 9 things that I have to do today before I get on a plane tomorrow to Minnesota. But please watch us tomorrow night live, 8:15 Eastern, Bettin and Boozin, 3 races at Canterbury Park. It's going to be a lot of fun. For my good friends, Pete Visco, and from the UK Live, Davy Lane, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz. It's been episode 269 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Everyone, good luck with your Royal ASCOT bets the rest of the week. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
See you, Davy.
Bye-bye, guys.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing Podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.